joining us tonight because, I mean, it doesn't look possible for Paul to have had the career length of time that you've actually had in the industry. I mean, is it really 46 years?
Very kind of you, but yes, it is, yeah.
I mean, it's nearly 50 years, and I don't want to be dreadful, but I just think you should look, a lot worse for having worked in our industry for that. Like, if I look as good as you after 46 years in this industry, I'll be so pleased.
Yeah, we're embarrassed now.
So, but I think what we want to do tonight is celebrate that Paul has done that, because I think it is a massive achievement. But there is so much that you can always learn from someone that's been on that journey. And I don't really know how else to intro you, Paul, in terms of that. To me, is really what we should try and take from tonight. And I think, any questions that you think of, any questions, I mean, I think we should lob at Paul, right? He's going to cope very well. Right, over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Sam, for the introduction. Yes, it was 1974 when I straight out of school and into a life assurance company. What I thought I'd do is I'd tell you my journey, if you like, to where I've got to today. But I thought I'd relate those things that I've learned over those years, even from day one almost, how it actually has affected me and how it's got to me where I've got to today, and perhaps how it still is in businesses today. Not a lot has changed in all that time in certain circumstances. So hopefully that'll feel interesting at times, and maybe you'll be taking the mickey out of me. So I'm going to lay everything bare. I'm going to throw you everything. And then at the end, perhaps I can talk about how I see what a financial advisor business will look like in 3 years' time. And so really bring it up to date. I'll talk about technology as we go through. And then as Sam says, please ask any questions if you've got any at the end. We'll probably run out of time, actually, because if I spend a minute on every single year, then we'll run out of time, haven't we? Right? So that's how we do it. So anyway, I have a mother. I'm married to Sue, and we have 4 children, and we now have 2 grandchildren as well. And the reason I bring that up is because my father died very young. In fact, it was 41 years ago now that he died. So my mother's brought me up. But I will come back to that because it does have something to do with my thoughts on intergenerational wealth. So I just wanted to bring that up to you. I've got 3 brothers. They are my best friends. I'm the eldest of 4 boys. We speak every single day. It never goes a day by. One of them lives in Dubai, and we still keep in contact. So we're really, really close. They are my best friends, and we share pretty much everything that goes on in the world. I've always played a lot of sport until about 7 years ago, when unfortunately I hurt my back, and I've not been able to play any sport since that time, which is really difficult, actually. If anybody's had a back pain, it's pretty debilitating, and I do suffer from that, and it's a real shame. And I just so much would love to play sport and do exercise, but I find that very difficult to do. I'm still hopeful. I do a bit of reformer Pilates from time to time, which is on a bench, and that's the best thing I can actually do. I mentioned the sport thing because actually when I've played sport, I've ended up being the captain often. So I've always tended to lead on these things. And then I got involved in the junior football club, and I ended up being chairman of that junior football club. And what I did when I was there, I took it from a very small village club into having 16 different age groups. I had boys and I had girl teams as well, so I led on that. We made the club chartered. We went from a little 4th division club to every single team playing in the 1st division. And the reason we really drove that was because I made it chartered. I got all of the coaches, all the fathers and mothers, all qualified in training, and it became one of the best clubs and still is around here. I also developed a junior football tournament for them as well, and we used to have 5,000 people turn up once a year at a junior football team, a tournament, and we raised £20,000 on that day for the junior football club, which we spent 100% on the kids. That's what we did, and it was really fantastic. I got some really great memories from that, and I still see people from that, still see friends from that, which is great. I then, I played golf as I've done for about 35 years until 7 years ago, but I became chairman of the golf club. And the reason I mention that to you is because I was chairman when we introduced the Equality Act of 2010. And that was really fun because our club was over 100 years old. So we had a men's section and a women's section, and the ladies section of the golf club tended to be older, and they were very, very difficult to deal with. And I went along to this AGM thinking, I've got this now, I understand what that's about, I'm going to introduce it to the club, make it fair. And it was the most difficult meeting I've ever had. And, well, sorry, second most difficult meeting I've ever had, and I'll refer to the first one in a minute. And it was difficult because they just didn't get it. You know, the difference between the men and the women were just so far apart, it was incredible. And I just had to call the meeting to a stop on that subject and say, we'll come back to it. And what I did after the meeting was I called all the people that were angry together and said, right, you're the subcommittee, you come up with the ideas and I'll present it at the next EGM. And that's what we did, and we got through and it was all fine. But it was interesting how people were so different about the Equality Act. Anyway, that's my sort of personal stuff. So I joined Target Life Assurance Company back in 1974, which was a very small unit-linked company. There was Allied Dunbar around at the time and Abbey Life, and we were sort of competition with those at that stage. But I knew nothing really. It was very easy to get a job. I went along to a school convention, or job convention at school, interviewed for 2 minutes, got a job offer for August, and I started on August 1st. I didn't know anything. First morning, I learned how to use a photocopier. That was my first job. In the afternoon, it was picking up the phone and speaking to clients. Now, if you remember back to 73, 74, there was a bit of a financial crisis at that time. And because they were a young unit-linked company, they had a few life assurance bond products that were invested in one particular fund. And Target Life were quite successful at selling the financial fund at that time. When 1973, the price was 89p. In 1974, when I joined, it was 29p. And I was working in the claims department. So in the afternoon, I was picking up the phone and I had some pretty irate people on the other end of the phone to me. And that was my sort of first day in the industry thinking actually shares can go down as well as up. And I learned that big time. And I enjoyed myself in head office, and it was a good learning curve for me. And it held me in good stead when I moved on to the broker sales side, because you know, if you know the people inside the business and you want things done, then you can get them done. They were my friends, and that really helped me. And I was quite successful quite quickly. And they gave me this Northwest London patch, which was a pretty dead area, actually. And so I've gone through the list of accounts in that particular area, picked a few that I'll go and see. And I remember this account I went and saw, and the company was called Arrow Hill, and the chap was called Anthony Winner. So I phoned him up, got the appointment, went along to see him, and the meeting lasted 3 minutes. That was it, because he was 100% with profit investor, and I was trying to sell a unit-linked investment. And I couldn't believe it. I walked out of he walked me out of the office, and I sat in my car and I thought, right, that is never going to happen to me ever again. What have I done wrong there? And the thing I learned about that is, if you ever go to a meeting, be prepared. You know, absolutely be prepared. If you're doing a presentation, anything you do, always be prepared. And I learned that lesson. Now that I learned my product, I learned about with profits, and I phoned him again in 3 months' time, went back and saw him, and he became one of my best clients after that. And he became a really good friend and advocate of me. So I turned that complete negative into a positive. But you know, if you take anything from this, just make sure you prepare. It was a big learning curve for me. Anyway, I became reasonably successful on that, and I qualified within 18 months for a sales conference. In those days, they were pretty fantastic things to go to. And I was invited to Miami, and that was only the second time I'd ever been abroad in my whole life at that stage. And we flew into Miami in the afternoon, got absolutely hammered in the evening. And bearing in mind, I'm only 21, 22 years old at this stage. Next morning, we're all the employees are called together into this great huge auditorium in this massive hotel in Miami, and they're going to launch a new product. And they're all getting excited about this new product. I can't remember what it was called now, but it basically was a permanent health insurance product, so pretty much not very exciting. And after they'd done the presentation, they said, right, we're going to choose one person in the room to present the product to us all here now. So, oh, okay, who's that going to be then? So they said, it's Paul Miles. And I thought, wow, I didn't know there was another Paul Miles in the company. And of course, all of a sudden I realized that, you know, people starting to look at me, and I thought, oh my God, it's me. And I can feel it now, see, my heart's pounding. My heart was out here. I could not believe how I felt. I felt so ill, and I was hungover as well. That was the worst thing. So my heart was out here. And they said, right, this chap took me and he said, you've got to go in this room, there'll be a pencil in there and a bit of paper. Think about it, just come out with the key points and come and present to us all. So I promise you, I was sat there thinking, oh my God, this is just the worst thing ever. And all of a sudden there was a knock on the door, and the guy that came in was a guy called Bob Bullivant. And he eventually ran the annuity bureau, which you may have heard of his name. Anyway, he ran our Birmingham branch, and he touched me on the shoulder. He said, Paul, don't worry, I'll help you. And on this bit of paper, he wrote 1, 2, 3, and he put some key points. He said, look, just say those things and you'll be fine. And I said, thank God, Bob, thank you so much for doing that to me. So with that, 2 minutes later, I went out of the room, and I was at the back, of course, had to walk through all this thing, got up onto the stage, got the microphone, and I was shaking. I couldn't hold the microphone still. My mouth went completely dry. And I thought, I'm looking down at a bit of paper, I'm trying to get myself together. And all of a sudden, everybody stood up, clapped their hands, and it was a wind-up against me. I thought, God almighty. So if you ever think that you're in a presentation, you're feeling nervous about it, just think of me that day, because that was the worst day. It will never, ever be as bad as that for you, and you won't die after it. So I learned a big lesson from doing that as well. Anyway, sort of cut a long story short, Target Life was great. We were selling products. There were products being sold elsewhere. We were dealing with financial advisor firms that typically sold 4 products. There's a lot of criticism about the type of products that were sold in those days, but actually you had no choice. There were no choice of products. These products were produced by product providers, and there were some products which are called savings plans, and you had no savings in the first 10 years. You know, it all went out in life company costs, and it all went out in commission. And that's what they were called in those days. So we did a lot of that sort of stuff. Anyway, Target Life got to 1987, 1986, 1987, and TSB bought them. And I had share options in the business, and there were a number of us that had share options, and we were all called to this meeting. And we sat down, they were telling us about it, all going to be great for us, and our share options are worth £22 each, I'll never forget. Okay, it's on June the 16th, and I'm thinking, well, I've got that number of shares times £22, that cannot be right. They've got the decimal point in the wrong place. And we got loads of money. It was incredible. I couldn't believe how much money it was going to be. So there I am, I'm less than 30 years old. I can pay my mortgage off and all sorts of stuff. It was just an amazing time. And I was thinking, well, what do I do next really in my life? And I thought I wanted to be an IFA. That's what I want to run my own business. That was what I was quite excited about. So I thought I can go and do that. And I was lucky enough. I had enough money where I didn't have to earn any money in the first couple of years, at least, really. I could just build a business. So, you know, setting up your own business now is very difficult. I get all that. I was lucky, you know, I had some money behind me to be able to do that. But it was hard at the beginning. You know, I didn't have any clients, and I was extremely naive. I really didn't know what I was in for. We made a lot of big mistakes, but I built it on the back of accountants, professional connections. I could never get any business from solicitors for some reason. I just didn't seem to fall into that market. But accountants, I know a bit about pensions, and it really worked well for me. And I built a reasonably good-sized regional IFA business. The point I'm going to make about that is that in 1987, I had a back office system. Right? So people talk about technology and IFAs not really wanting technology or not being able to use it. I had it in 1987. I first reviewed my back office system in 1993 and had my second one and did a data migration. I moved to fees, 50% of my business was fees in 1994. Right? We had cash flow modeling tools then. I moved on to platforms at the end of the 1990s. I was outsourcing my investment proposition in the early 2000s. Now, a lot of the stuff that we talk about now is not new. Unfortunately, some of that technology that we're using today was around then. It's not actually changed, which is the thing I'm going to come on to. That's the frightening thing, actually, is that some businesses have got technology at the center of their business that's 20 years old. You think, well, wow, that's incredible. Has technology not moved on? It's moved on more than that in the last 6 months. So that's quite funny. But so I don't think, you know, a lot of what's going on in the marketplace at the moment in terms of review, it's not new. It's absolutely not new. And, you know, in a commission environment, commission world, we were charging fees. We wrote pension books, we wrote guides on pension books. I wrote a book that on personal pension plan back in the 1990s, which was an activity publication. So members of the public could go through it chapter by chapter, and at the end of the book, you've actually designed your own personal pension plan. So rather than advisors recommending you one based on commission, you could go to them. I sold 10,000 of those books in WH Smith. Do you know how many clients I picked up out of that? 0, not one. And then I did it with the Express newspapers, sold thousands there. Do you know how much business I wrote? 0. And the reason was that I wasn't national. People were buying the books and using them and then going to their own advisors. And that was quite funny because actually I was trying to find out what had been going on with these people. And with Express newspapers, when you phone somebody and say that I'm phoning up on behalf of Express newspapers, the person on the other end screams with excitement. It's incredible. If I'd have said I was Wayborn Financial Services, then absolutely no, I'd probably put the phone down. But I could speak to the whole family. It was amazing. Anyway, these people just said, yeah, we love the book. Thank you very much. And we've gone and seen our Halifax sales guy and sold it there. So anyway, that didn't work. I tried it, it didn't work. But we were very much involved in pensions, which sort of led me into the pensions review back in the 1990s. That was horrendous for me because, I'd sold, so we had a lot of clients based through accountancy connections, mostly pensions. And so we had over 2,000 cases in our pensions review. I forgot to mention, actually, my business partner died in 1994, which that was a bit of a difficult time as well, of course, obviously, but I tried to buy the other half of my business from his wife. Was interesting. But so I owned the business 100%. And of course, the whole pensions review fell on me. And you had the regulator, and some of you won't remember this, but you had the regulator advertising on the TV to make claims against financial advisor firms. So I'm thinking, my God, what is my liability? I mean, I haven't given any wrong advice, but you know what it's like. You just get caught up in all this sort of stuff. And that was just frightening. But I do say that about DB transfers. I don't know where we're going to end up with a DB transfer. There will be a review at some time, but just imagine that. We get adverts now, don't we, on the radio for it. But if you started getting a regulator advertised on TV, God knows what would happen. Don't say it won't happen, because it did happen. Anyway, I sold my business then, and that was partly because of that pensions review as well. And I knew a guy called Derek Berry of a company called Berry, Birch and Noble. And they were an AIM-listed business, and I thought quite a good business. And the 5 directors in that business were great. They'd been around since the 1960s, and they were looking to take it to the next stage, but they needed younger blood, and I was young at that stage, and that was great. So they took me on there to be MD of that business. What went wrong there was that, so my buyout package was partly cash, but it was also investment into that business and to stay and build that business. And the problem there was that it was AIM listed, and someone came along and bought 29.9% of the shares, and we didn't know who it was. And they had to make an offer for the business, which they did, which was a guy called Cliff Lockyer. And again, some of you might remember him, and I hope none of you are his children or anything, but he was a really slippery individual. And I knew of him, and I thought, oh, I don't like the sound of that. So I went and spent a day with him or half a day in the end it was actually, up in Coventry with him. And I came out of that meeting and I thought, oh my God, what have I done? I've just parked 20 years of my life in this business. I cannot work with this guy. What am I going to do? It was a real difficult time, and I thought, right, I'm getting out. I just can't work with anybody I don't like, and certainly somebody I don't trust. There's just no way I'm going to do that. And I resigned from there, not knowing what I was going to do. So I thought, well, the only thing I know is IFA, financial advisors. I don't know anything else. So I phoned 50 of my mates, would you mind switching your business over to me? And it gave me a bit of income, so I did that. But I was also thinking about, what else, could I be doing at that stage? And I set up a company called First Investment Direct. It was a limited company, so actually FIDL, so it was called Fiddle. I didn't realise that when I set it up, but that was what it was actually called. And I was quite interested in thinking about, because even in those days, the web was still pretty new. Do you know what I mean? I only had an email address for about 4 years at that stage. It's all still pretty new. But anyway, I thought that there's got to be a market for PEPs being done online. That's what I thought at the time. So could I find a product provider that could actually do that? So it's really, you know, I'm the person that, you know, that created robo-advice. I don't think it's anybody else. It was definitely me. I'm only joking. I mean, it was ahead of its time, without a doubt. And so the only product provider that could support that was Scandia at the time, which is now Old Mutual, Quilters, or whatever the name is of the business now, called Scandia. And they did have some sort of online facility. But it was a 7-step process. They could white label it for me, and I thought, oh, this is great, you know. So how am I going to, I can get them to do that? So they did that for me, and I thought, well, how am I going to market that? So I found out about a business called 50connect.com, which is a website for the over 50s. So it had Stano lifts and it had Hillary blinds and all that sort of stuff. But it did have this financial channel in it, and I thought, oh, how many people go in that a month? So they had 900,000 members of this 50connect.com. 450,000 went into the financial advisor bit. Oh, that's great. I'm going to definitely go in there. So I thought, right, well, what I'll do is no upfront commission. It'll all be on trail only. And that's what I do. So I set all that up. Fantastic. I had loads, hundreds of thousands of people going into this channel. Do you know how much business I wrote? 0. Great idea, just couldn't make it work. And I think the reason I couldn't make it work was because of the time that we did it. So people weren't buying stuff online at that stage. Definitely, that was a big thing for it. Secondly, it was the technology wasn't suitable. So it was very, very clunky. And believe it or not, you got through a 7-step process and you had to print it at the end and post it in the post. So it was a half my house. It was a good idea, but it just wasn't right at that time. And there wasn't the technology to find out where people were dropping out. So I didn't really know where it wasn't working. I didn't know whether people got to the 2nd stage, the 3rd stage. Just couldn't find out. Anyway, next stage. What I'm going to do next, I was thinking about the financial advisor market. Where's it going? Platforms are a good idea. Absolutely. And I knew Brett Williams pretty well, who ran Celestia at the time. And him and he didn't live very far from me. We used to have a few beers occasionally. So he said, well, can I come and help him run the nationals and networks for him? Oh, I was jumping back in the other way, but you know what I've learned might be useful in that marketplace. And anyway, that was quite successful, but that only lasted a couple of years because they were owned by Old Mutual, and Old Mutual bought Scandia, and of course they integrated the business. And as we all know, there's no such thing as integration. I didn't want to be a part of a 2,500 person business. I wanted to be able to implement it, so stop that. And then I helped. Well, within Celestia, we were starting to outsource our investment process at that stage to SEI, actually, and that was becoming quite successful. I'm thinking, that's where the market's going, that direction. So I helped set up Parmenion, so platform and discretionary fund management business, and that was interesting in the, you know, we wanted to charge 60 basis points, and we split it 50-50 between DFM and platform charge. But actually, it was the same thing, really. And I tell you, that wasn't a good bit of kit. That was just simply some sort of back office somewhere with a little bit of a website on the front. It cost us £50,000. It wasn't very expensive, but it was very simple. And that was part of the key to it, actually. Keep it simple. And it was, you could actually get to an investment proposition within about 3 minutes. And that's what people like to act on. Anyway, that was all history. And then I did a bit of sort of help with discretionary fund managers and some M&A stuff in the IFA space. But in 2015, I had my first grandchildren, and that's my granddaughter. She's 5 years old now, and that's my grandson now. He's 2 years old, and that was a bit of a moment for me. It was like, well, what am I doing? You know, was I really enjoying what I was doing? And I wanted to be able to be in a place where, you know, 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, I get a phone, can I go and pick her up from a nursery? Yeah, I want to say yes to that. So I thought, I wasn't frightened about going on my own. So I thought, well, I'll set up Silverback Consultancy, which you know the name of, as just a consultancy business, and see how it goes. And is my knowledge worth any money to anybody? So that was a bit of a test. And I got a lot of plates in the air because I could talk about a lot of stuff. And then I was thinking, well, I don't want to under-deliver on stuff. You know, that was the thing. I've got too many things going on. I thought, what do I really enjoy? What am I passionate about? And it always comes back to that financial advisor bit for me. That was, you know, that's where I am. That's what I know, and that's what I love. And you know, what were the areas that were most concern for financial advisor businesses? It was all around tech, really. And the first thing was that the majority of people, and they still are a lot of people, are reviewing their back office system. You know, that's not working. It's things have moved on from that now. You know, the reporting of it, the internal MI reporting is best endeavours. Reporting they're doing to regulators is best endeavours. It's just not really fit for purpose anymore. So where's that going to go to? And it's not a CRM, you know, but there are CRMs out there at the moment. So I thought, well, you know, where does that go to? And what sort of services and can you give clients going forward? And now we've got this digital transformation, you know, what does that really mean to people? And I'm thinking that's interesting. I want to know about that. So I got involved there, and data, of course, is absolutely king. So that was interesting. Another concern was people's centralised investment propositions, and that is a real big concern. I'm thinking about 2012 and RDR, and I'm thinking that didn't really work, did it? You know, I'm thinking, well, actually, in some ways it has, but in a lot of ways it hasn't. People say they're charging fees, they're not. It's on the old structure. It's just an amount of money that happens to be exactly the same as the commission they were charging before. Discretionary fund managers, you know, they've outsourced to a lot of DFM businesses. And sorry, Heather, here, but I don't want to upset you in any way. But you know, I've seen some horrendous things inside DFMs. You know, I see financial advisor firms that have got a panel of DFMs that are almost exactly the same and don't really understand what's going on inside them. And I'm thinking, why would you give your clients to anybody anyway? So I'm thinking, if that was me, I'd want an in-source service. I would want somebody to be able to power my own DFM service. That's what I'm interested in. And if that could be linked to technology, then that's what I fancy more. So that's another thing I talk about. And then, of course, we get in the platform world. Well, that's an interesting world, isn't it? You know, what's the journey in the platform world? Well, crikey, it's speeding up this year, that's for sure. I don't know whether the pandemic's caused that or whether we've been expecting it for some time. What's the journey for the, you know, the platform world? So it's what funds, you know, fund supermarkets weren't we to start with, and then we go on platforms and then racks. So pricing is now under pressure. You know, what do people use? Where does it go next? I don't know, really. I've got some views on it, but I'm not really sure where it goes. So just as your women in platforms, you know, I'd say to you, you know, what's the future? How many are there going to be, these platforms? Because the technology providers is what, 3 or 4 that have got the majority of the market, and I think certainly will have the majority of the market. I've always thought it's a bit of tech anyway. It's not a product, it's a bit of tech. That's how I sort of always thought about it. And I listened to Andy Bell at lunchtime, actually, of HA Bell, and he said something which I don't necessarily agree with. He said that price, service, and functionality are absolutely the key to the future, but you can't offer all 3. So I thought, well, why can't you offer all 3? You know, like maybe in the early 2000s you couldn't offer all 3, but surely technology's moved on and enable you to be able to do that. So I didn't really quite get that. Anyway. So all those things.
Well, what do you think he meant? So what did he think you could do? I mean, as in, so you can't.
I think what his driver was for that, Sam, was about the majority of platforms aren't profitable, and it's a massive investment and a long-term project to become profitable. So you know, you said there's a lot of pressure on price, but you know, can you reduce can some of these platforms reduce the price anymore? If they're not profitable where they are, how are they going to do that anymore? And right. I think that was really what he was saying.
Heather, you had your hand up, Heather. Sorry, Paul, we've interrupted.
Hey,
just while you're on that point, I just thought it was an interesting.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a view on it as well, but you know, I'd rather get everyone else's view. I'm not meant to have a view, I think. I'm not sure.
Shut up, Sam.
Oh, I want to hear yours too, Sam. I mean, it's something that I think has been going around for quite a while. This issue that I wrote a piece when I was at Platform. I mean, it must be like 5 or 6 years ago. It was the customer service cost conundrum, and it was this: you know, if we have a race to zero on pricing, but there's a premium service expected that doesn't really work. And if you look at, I mean, Aviva, I think, set up their platform to try and encourage self-service. And you can say that, you know, the platform doesn't work properly for self-service, but it's hard to get through to somebody, right? And they make it purposefully hard that you go through at a central place and then you get fed out to somebody. But you can't offer a premium service at a discount price. And I think it's something that the platforms have struggled with. And there's different models that we've talked about, whether it wouldn't be possible to have, or I've talked about whether it's possible to have sort of a if you think of a frequent flyer point thing, like you have a gold card. So I'm an advice firm going to pay for a premium service, so I get my clients pay the 15 bits or whatever that is, but I can still get the premium service, because there's a bit of a conflict and a tension between who's benefiting from that service, and so part of the issue that we're is because the way platforms are regulated. That's a whole lot of bleh. Hi everyone, Sam, I want to hear your views on it too.
Well, it's just that my view is that I mean, and Paul, I just don't think we're going to get a choice. This is the bit I find a bit weird about the way we work as an industry, is we kind of sit there going, oh, you can't have all three. It's like, well, I think it's almost like, that's like saying, well, you can't have online shopping and a shop that you walk into. The two don't go together. You can't do that. So you've either got to be a shop on this high street or you go online, but you can't be both. And it's like, well, I mean, but I think some people have pulled that off very well. I mean, not everyone will pull it off. I don't give everyone the ability to do it, but I guess I kind of think differently about these things. I think, what is the conundrum or the challenge? And then how do you meet the challenge? I mean, but starting from, I said the best one I've ever had, which was is IKEA. I mean, just think of IKEA. IKEA's remit is to provide great quality service to people at the lowest cost possible. I mean, that is, and the one that stands out to me is the door. So they said, we want to put doors, good quality doors, for sale through IKEA for £5. And the whole of IKEA's product world and the whole bits is just not possible. You can't do it. It's 25 quid minimum. And they're like, no, 5 quid. Anyway, with that conundrum, with that challenge, if you like, or what do you want to call it, they met that and they did it beautifully. And what they did is they actually took disused church pews that had no value, that incredibly amazing wood, and they could put them in two halves, join them together, and they had this amazing door for 5 quid. So they found a way to do it. I guess what I'm trying to say is, why do we just say it's not possible?
Well, I think that's right now as well with technology. I mean, I think we've escalated, haven't we, gone forward probably 3 years. We'd have got there eventually, but that's where we are at the moment. And why can't you be a trailblazer on this? Why can't the technology be far advanced than what we've seen before? I mean, there'll be things in 3 years that we've not even thought about yet that will be part of daily life. That's how quickly we're moving. I mean, that's really exciting, I think. But I think people have got to be worried with statements like that, because they could easily get left behind, couldn't they? Quite quickly right now.
It's just odd that Andy, I mean, of all the people, I would have thought he was a little bit more.
Yeah. But don't get on the phone to him tomorrow, will you? Because he'll know where it's coming from.
Well, he said it, didn't he? I don't know. So, sorry, keep going, Paul. Anyway.
Sure. Okay. So with those three things, what I was finding out was that I was right in the centre of the business, because if they're going to change their platform, they're going to change their CIP, or they're going to change their back office system. These are big decisions to make, aren't they? So then I was finding myself, well, actually, if you're going to make the change, is the business fit for the change, or where does the business need to be in a few years' time? What sort of journey are you going to go on there? Maybe I could be an NED then to some of these businesses, or on an advisory position. And it was coincidental, because I found a book which is called Traction, which I think some of you know about, which is written by Gino Wickman. And he's got this thing called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And there's nothing new in there. It's just a very, very simple template. Believe me, there's loads of stuff about it, but simple template, few pictures, which I like. So I thought that's great, but Traction was a little bit complicated for me. And he did another book called Get a Grip, and that's a case study. And I'm reading through this book, and I'm thinking, my God, that Carol was called Annette in my business, and that Peter was called John in my business. And I was recognising my old IFA business in this book. And then I was thinking, actually, every business I meet, I recognise in this book. So that's interesting, in itself. So I started talking about that, and I read more and more, and I was absorbing it, and I thought, well, I'll test it on a few people. And it went down really well. and I started talking about it at a couple of conferences and things, and dropped things in about it, and it got a really great reaction. I thought, oh, this is really interesting. So I then became signed up to become an EOS implementer. And that was interesting because I just wanted more information. I wanted the inside stuff and get it out and maybe use it myself. So that's what I've done. And I talked to a lot of people about that now, and talk about business transformation, restructuring their businesses for growth. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's really exciting. And if you're going to build some technology and you're going to design a business for the future, you know, I love it. I absolutely love what I do. So that sort of takes me up really to, I'll drop just one more thing about me personally, and like Helena knows this, I'm very passionate about charity work and what you give outside businesses as well. So I am a trustee of a mental health charity, and I know there's been a lot talked about that, and you just hear every single thing on TV at the moment talk about mental health. And we've done very well because of where we are at the moment in this, and we have a 5-acre site, which is just a beautiful oasis. We turned it into gardens, and people can just come there. And we created this thing called Rest and Reflect, which just literally means you just go there, rest and reflect. And we opened it up to the NHS to start with. And we had nurses coming down, and they can either just sit on their own, or they can bring somebody with them, or they can meet other people, or sit by a pond for half an hour, have a cup of tea, whatever. And we had 2,000 people come through that in 8 weeks. We just couldn't believe it. And we've opened it up even further now. So that's been a great success, and I really am very proud of that. And I do care about it, and I do care about people, I do care about businesses, but I also like to see that in other people as well. And Money Marketing, about 12 months ago, actually, just before lockdown, asked me to judge some awards. And they said, which one do you want to do, Paul? And I said, I'd like to do the Young Advisor one, wherever that is. So I'm quite interested in younger people coming into the industry. And I had this Rising Advisor of the Year award. And I had 20 applicants for it. Fantastic. I was reading these 1,000-word documents, and yeah, brilliant. Anyway, I had to get them down to 6, got them down to 6, and I met all 6 of them. And one of the things I did ask them is, what else do you do outside financial services then? And so there's some great things that people are doing, just amazing. And the young guy I gave it to, and wow, I came off the call and my wife said, why are you smiling so much? I said, I've just met this guy, he's just incredible. I said, I want to phone him up for a job. That's how much I liked what he was doing and what he stood for, and the standards and his culture and everything else. It was just absolutely brilliant. So what you do outside the industry, I think, is just as important as what you do inside it. And I just wanted to mention that. Not blowing my own trumpet, just like sort of judge people by that. It's good to give back, isn't it? And particularly right now, I think as an industry, generally speaking, we're lucky compared to a lot of people, a lot of people. So what do I think a new financial advisor business should look like now going forward? I think, without a doubt, that the business is going to be tech driven. No question about that. We've moved really fast forward last year. I think 2021 is the year we're going to come of age with technology. And I use Heather's slide a lot about her mixture of technology, but I found a new one, Heather. What do you think of this one? It's just a complicated world, isn't it? There's just so much technology available, and a lot of firms have bits of technology. They just don't talk. They've got spreadsheets all over the place. How on earth can they report? It's just an absolute mess. So we've got to sort that out. So I think this is the year that, people are going to start to say, right, what technology do I need and how do I make it joined up? And that's the important part. I think also, one of the things we do wrongly actually is a lot of the times we think about ourselves, if we do something, how is that going to affect business? I think we should think more about the client actually. So if we introduce technology into the business, how does that reduce costs for the client? How does that improve the proposition? How does that improve their experience with you as a business? And I think, we miss that actually. And I get a bit annoyed about advisor firms create propositions to suit themselves and to justify their fees. And an example of that is that, the market moved to say a 1% model from say a 50 basis points model. Well, for that, I've got to increase what I give to the client. So, and Sam, we were talking about this the other week, and it, you know, right, okay, I'm going to give you 4 reviews a week and 65 newsletters that you can't understand any of them, and so on and so forth. They never ask the client for that. What does the client actually want? They don't ask them that. They produce, you know, they give the proposition, and the majority of cases are based on what they think they can deliver to that client for that fee. And you know, the question is, and Sam and I were talking about this, you know, how much of a fee would they pay? Is it the fee that's the problem? I don't think so. You know, maybe people pay 1% for a proposition where they don't actually see the advisor. Maybe. I had an interesting quote the other day as well, speaking to quite a large firm, which most of you will know. And the CEO of that firm said he feels like he's going to become a tech business that offers financial planning rather than the other way around. He thinks that a lot of his business is being driven that way. Interesting thought. Intergenerational wealth, I'll get back to my mum. So my mum is 86, I'm 63. My children are in their 30s, my grandkids, you've seen them now. So we're 4 generations. So we're never talking about 2 generations, we're talking about 4 generations in most cases. So then people, okay, so the younger generation want more technology than the older generation. Well, actually, I don't think you should look at it that way. Because my mum's got an iPad, she's buying stuff on Amazon, so it's not that she won't use technology. What I think is important is that you should offer both. You need a hybrid version where you can offer face-to-face advice and you can offer online advice, or you can have online services, but anybody within that 4 generations can use it. It shouldn't just be for one, you know, only the younger generation are only going to need this, or the older generation are only going to need face-to-face. No, it's not the case. Why don't you ask them what they need?
And Paul, do you think that, I mean, just given with this group here, and just conscious that we've got about 10 minutes left, and I'm only saying that what you've raised to me is quite an important, especially for this group, in that we've got advisors and platform knowledge here, you know, genuinely. And I guess I'd love to hear a little bit from some of the people around here about, surely between the advisors and the platforms, what we can deliver to the customer could be amazing. Like honestly, wipe the floor. And I'm just, I'm still a little bit puzzled why we haven't quite seen that, you know. And then Andy Bell, who I think very highly of, goes and says that. I'm like, wow, why? I mean, what are your views? You know, what? Helena?
I actually think, to some extent, only from a recent experience and just because we were curious, I think we shield the clients from a lot of the stuff as advisors, that we shield them from a lot of the issues with providers. We started tracking our calls to providers this week. 2 of my team spent over 2 hours on hold just to try and speak to a provider. I had a client, and I really try and be client choice led. I really want people to come to us and they can choose which part of their service that they want. We said that to a client. We created an amazing plan and said, now you go and set that up. I literally feel so guilty because the issues they had to simply transfer their pension was horrific. So I think we come at it from 2 different angles. The providers are not connected to clients. They're not linking that. When I say to someone, and I know I couldn't go on this because I care about people not caring about the person's money. When I say to someone that when you're telling that person they can't do that, you're telling them they can't go on holiday, you're telling them they can't access their money, you're creating a level of distrust there that we're going to struggle to keep bridging. So we shield that. We shield the clients from that as advisors quite a lot. We take that stress. And I think until providers actually start collaborating and we get creative and work together, or someone new come and just sweep the floor with there's an element of just, I think, and I'm going to call it arrogance. I don't know what else to call it because I'm sorry, my brain's not functioning today. But there's a level of arrogance that people need us. There's going to be new providers that come in that will think a bit differently and focus on the client, because we can see that in other industries, and it's not going to be difficult to to do something better, because I actually think we're quite poor on client service as an industry in general. Look how we speak to clients in statements, look how we speak to clients in complaints letters, you know, all of that stuff. Until we actually come together and collaborate better, or you create a better partnership, I don't think that will work. And I put in the chat, I wonder if it's because it's small firms. We don't have a voice. I can shout until I'm blue in the face, they won't listen to me.
That's a really good point, actually. What you're saying is, because there's a lot of small, you know, but actually you have waiting numbers in terms of how you could get the providers and maybe at times some of the platforms to react, is what you're saying. I mean, yeah. I mean, any other views on that?
Well, coming from a platform point of view, I suppose the challenge, and first of all, I completely agree, you know, you shouldn't have to compromise on the service or the price or the proposition. But I think a lot of the platforms do have a long way to go. And we are seeing some new entrants that are beginning to think differently. And I agree with your comments, Sam. I think if you look at it across the piece, and this is just my personal view, please, this is not the representation view of Wealth Time or ANACAP or Novia, that we are all using old tech. You know, the tech, whether it's outsourced to a third party or your own, is probably about 10 years old now. And so there's a significant investment required to upgrade. And obviously to be able to make that investment, you need scale, because you need to have scale for profitability. And I think in terms of the service delivery, the challenges there are so many people in the value chain now. You've got the fund managers, you've got the DFMs, you've got the third party transfer agents. So it's not as if the platform is controlling their own service delivery. There is so much reliance on third parties. And until we can all line up together and sing from the same page, I think that challenge is going to be very difficult to overcome. And Helena, please, phone Wealth Time. We pick up the phone in 3 seconds. That is literally 3 rings is our SLA. And that's what we think it should be. You should be able to pick up the phone and speak to a real human. And I'm not here to market or advertise Wealth Time, by the way. But I think that the other challenge is you look at, and it goes back to misalignment of the processes that the platforms put in place, which are usually task-based and don't align with the customer experience. So you have the service delivery model set up on a manufacturing basis, almost a widget factory, a sausage factory, if you will. And that, you know, Mrs. Miggins comes in one end and goes through the sausage factory and comes out the other. But that doesn't support the customer journey. And it doesn't, you know, so I think what platforms have to do is to look at the customer's experience end to end, not just from the customer, this end customer, but also, of course, the advisor. And once we do all of those things, I think we'll start to see some really great progress in our industry.
I do think, Lucy, one of the things, you know, I'm a great believer in that you have your data in one place, okay? And I do think that should be in your CRM. So the important thing is going to be the quality of your integrations. And a lot of these integrations are poor, aren't they? Because nobody knows who owns them, who should pay for them, and what's needed. So I think really, you know, people like yourselves, I think, should have great integrations with the CRM, because that's where it's got to be. And that's what you should work towards. And then I'd question, you know, like your client portals and so on, where should they be? You know, because like DFMs have client portals, platforms have the CRM. I think it should be CRM as the portal. Okay, so that'd be something you haven't got to worry about. And it's a little bit, for me, it's about sticking to what you're really good at, you know. And I think sometimes, you know, what is a platform, what it's got involved in. We spoke a few weeks ago, didn't we, about, you know, the potential for CRM to be close to the platform, and should they be the same thing? And then we've seen Transact and Time for Advice, which has been an interesting development. You know, why have Transact done that? I'm not sure yet. We'll find out. But it's great for Time for Advice because they've got injection of capital, they escalate things and all that sort of thing. So I do think that integration bit is the important thing. And you know, you're right about the technology, and it has to catch up, doesn't it? But we've got to catch up. You know, we've got to find ways of doing that. It is out there at the moment. And it's like, you know, I know I do work closely with Time for Advice, so I know, but they've decided to put it on Microsoft Dynamics. So they're pitching on the back of Microsoft Dynamics, aren't they? Salesforce are coming in with SJP, you know, and it just makes you wonder, doesn't it, that, you know, and a lot of the platforms now, FNZ or Bravura or whatever else it is, you know, I don't know where it's really going. I don't know. I just think this integration thing is really important, and simplification of that. You know, I know of investment solutions that are online that provide cash flow modeling tools, risk profiling. So why would you go and buy them from a third party that doesn't actually integrate with your data? So that's crazy. So simplification has got to be important. That's what people have got to look for. Simplification, effective integrations, and modern technology. Let's go and do it. You know,
Completely
it's
agree.
exciting.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
You want to throw anything else in?
There's a bit in the chat room about crypto. I don't know if anyone wants to talk about that.
No.
And Robinhood, and I guess what I'm picking up in the chat is a little bit of tension between the fintech startups that kind of, you know, a bit glossy on the top, but underneath are terrible in terms of when they, you know, when they actually deliver. What is it? I think we, you know, what is it? I don't ever want to be called a flaky fintech. What is it? You know, I'm picking up a bit of that. But having said that, I still think, dare I say it, some of the flaky fintechs are very good to get the older, kind of more traditional world to sit up and think, actually, we need to do something. Otherwise, the flaky fintechs will eat our lunch, even though they're flaky, right? So, so I have a bit of, I like a bit of flaky fintech, as in terms of the industry. I think it's very good. Brian, you've got your hand up. You're on mute, sorry.
Yeah, just a really quick point since we're at time. I'm doing some work for a client right now on this who wants to modernize and compete with the likes of Robinhood and all these. People are getting scammed so badly thinking they're on a free platform without a human being like this group. And it's really, really, really dangerous. Like Robinhood is not free. They're selling people's order flow to the hedgies. The Robinhood got badly burned. They're even doing their own clearing, and they don't even have the balance sheet to do it, which is why they had to run out and get 3 to 4 billion to float their clearing. So I think all this plays into the financial planning, paraplanning model where you have a real human being supported by cutting edge tech. That's my soapbox.
The $1 million question for that, Brian, is will they pay for it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think people pay for value. The problem is in the race to zero and the margin squeeze that we're seeing, it's tough. And over here, we even have more layers of regulatory than you can imagine. I'm a dual citizen, by the way, and you wouldn't believe how bad the regulatory thing gets. Like I can't invest in a lot of funds personally without being out of compliance, and it's just a minefield. So again, it gets to paying somebody. I'm happy to pay my plan. I have a very good financial planner at RBC, and he adds tremendous value. By the way, he's 26 years old and started as a teller in a branch. And this guy, he's excellent.
I think one of the questions that that keeps coming up, which I know probably annoys, you know, everyone immensely, but it is a bit about, I really do think clients will pay for help with their money. I have, in fact, it's a no-brainer. I think the problem we still have is that we're not really good at explaining what you get for your money and how that works. And the reason I say that is it goes back to a long time ago when I first came over here, and I was probably in my late 20s, you know, when I realized that I needed to do something with my money, but I had no idea what to do with it in terms of investment, you know. So, and because I was 27 and didn't have lots of money, so I wasn't like a, you know, no one would take me on. And then I'm not saying no one, because there clearly were people who would have, but I couldn't find them. So I tried a few, got rejected. And actually that's not helpful either. So, you know, because you've been rejected then, so then you then go your own way, don't you, do your own thing, because you've got no choice. But I think I really hope what's coming is that shouldn't be possible again, that opportunity will change. Because of the way now we can't, you know, because of the connection that you can get, you know, whereas, you know, I'm showing my age here, but, you know, I would have probably been in the yellow pages looking up help. That's probably what I was doing. And, you know, when I rang up, you know, who knows who I hit, right? So that we should be able to do a better job of that. But the other conundrum we've slightly got is with the Robin Hoods out there kind of portraying something that actually isn't real either. So it swings and roundabouts. But I really would like to believe that the mass market can get advice with the combination of the knowledge that you all have and the tech. That's honestly, I hang on to that for grim life, because so many people, yeah, consumers, would be much better off if they had that combination in their back pocket. And I know a few of you are thinking about those models and how you take them to market. So I'm very optimistic that we will get there. It's just maybe not right this second. So I have to be a bit more patient.
But Sam, one of the things I wanted to say based on that is, I was in the same boat as you. I thought paying for advice was within outside of my reach when I was in my 20s. So I think we also need to look at maybe how we restructure or innovate the way in which we charge for advice, just so that it makes it more accessible. And I know it's easy for me to sit here and say that because I'm not running a financial advice practice, and I don't know the increasing costs that financial practices have got to pay. I don't know how bad things are in that space, but I think subscription-based models or pay-as-you-go models would make it far more easy for the younger generation to be able to pay for advice and not to take the matter in their own hands and go and do silly things on platforms like Robinhood.
Well, yeah, the question I had to put was, I just said that I think sometimes the world gets a little bit skewed in that they think, well, I can't take £1,000 off Sam. She's 26. She hasn't got that much. I can't do that. But it's like, it might have been the best £1,000 I ever spent. And I'm not sure why we get so hungry. And I'm picking £1,000, by the way, out of the air. But what I'm getting at is, I'm just not 100% sure if there is a price that needs to be paid and you get this for it. Anyway, so we're over time, and I'm really sorry. I could talk about this all night.
I think just quickly on that, Sam, I'd just say that I used to always treat clients in families. So I had a thing, I give anybody under the age of 30 free advice because they only wanted a mortgage or an ISA anyway, and I might do some life insurance in there, but that was it. And I think we owe it to people. Don't we? We should give some free advice occasionally. What's wrong with that? The last thing, Sam, I know you want to go, and I know everybody else does want to go. I want to give you one word, okay, which is inspirational. All right. So whatever you do, be inspirational, and I mean that. And I was thinking about that yesterday about our communications with clients generally aren't inspirational. Make them inspirational. I know we have these regulatory problems. We've got to send them packs of stuff. Get away, get in front. What they want, make it inspirational. Make them want to read it. Make it interesting to them, make it valuable to them, make it bespoke to that individual person. And I think that gets back on this, we just don't ask what people want enough. We look at these services, but we still keep giving clients things that we think are right for them. And it comes back to your point, Sam, nobody's asking you what service you want and what you're willing to pay for. Anyway, inspirational.
There we go. On that note, we're all going to finish because I'm sure this is. In the chat, there's a lot of really good points, and don't get me wrong, I know it's not easily solved, but I hope by the time I've done as many years as Paul, that that actually we'll be sitting here and we'll be celebrating, right? Some of us will be able to celebrate,
together.
I think I am inspired. I am optimistic by where we're heading. That's for sure. So, on that note, see you in a month's time. Heather, I don't know do you want to mention who's next? Gillian, sorry. There.
Yeah, thanks very much. Apologies, I had to drop off for a little while and missed some of what looked like a great session. There's a few family challenges, but so thanks to everybody who sent me some notes of support. And you know what, that's sometimes what this network's about as well. So I really appreciate that, everybody, because as one. Anyway, I'm hosting the next session in a month's time. I'm really delighted that hopefully I'm going to be joined by Jill Jackson, who is the CEO of The Big Exchange. Some of you might have already done some work with her or know her. The Big Exchange is a new platform, D2C, that's come to the market that's partnered with The Big Issue. And Jill's going to talk to us all about what that looks like, what the platform's all about, sustainable investments, and I just think it'll be a great chat. So enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody, and look forward to seeing you on the 10th of March.